Hello, I'm Dr. Adam Brummett with the University of Iowa, and this is Chats with a Scientist, where we get to know the people behind the research. Today we were talking with Dr. Ece Demir-Lira from the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences. We will get to hear her interesting journey to joining us here at the University of Iowa. So let her take it over from here.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Ece Demir-Lira. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences here at the University of Iowa. To give you a little bit of information about my background, I was born and raised in Turkey. And I finished my undergrad in Turkey in psychology at Koç University. Then I came to Midwest, University of Chicago, for my PhD in cognitive neuroscience, and I got used to Midwest cold, and I'm there since then. I went to Northwestern University for my postdoc in communication sciences and disorders. Then I came back to University of Chicago as a research scientist in psychology again before I arrived in Iowa 4 years ago. Yeah. So that's briefly my background.
Well, we're glad you're here in Iowa City with us.
Yeah, I love it here actually. Yeah.
So what's, I guess, the elevator pitch of your research? But how can you summarize that for someone that especially is not in your field? How could you summarize that for us?
Sure, yeah. So in my lab, in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences, we try to address this question, this long-standing question, right? Why is it that certain kids succeed in school, thrive in school, when others fall behind, right? And we know that these early academic differences, even at kindergarten, predict important life outcomes, physical health, mental health, adulthood income, college entrance, all these important outcomes. So we want to understand where do these differences start and why they are there. And in order to understand, we combine multiple methods. So we do behavioral methods that illuminate children's early home experiences, parent-child interactions via home visits or lab observations. And we also combine this with neuroimaging measures. So we use MRI and FNIRS to understand the neurocognitive systems children recruit when they are solving different academic tasks. So the idea, again, is to see what are the networks that children use when they are solving different academic tasks, such as reading and numerical problems, right, math, and how does it vary as a function of their early environmental experiences. And we tend to focus on preschool years because I think, and the research shows that these are very formative years. Again, as I said, children are already very different from each other by the time they step their foot in formal school in kindergarten. So we try to really get them in these formative years where parents play a very significant role. So that's what we do in the lab every day.
That is fascinating. I like how you kind of pair that, both behavioral and the imaging side of things. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with what. Obviously, there's probably a lot to this, but what really gets you excited about your research?
Yeah, I mean, what gets me most excited about research is the fact that you have these questions, right? These novel questions. You get to come up with the question on your own based on the literature, and then you get to do the research, right? I love that process of research, which is, on a day-to-day basis, not glamorous, right? You collect the data, you fix this script, you fix that script, you notice an error. So these day-to-day increments, and in the end, you get the data, and hopefully you see the bigger picture. So that, to me, these little events that happen on a day-to-day basis gets me excited about the research. But another very significant portion of what makes me happy about the research is honestly the students. It's really wonderful to see a student, right, an undergrad or a grad student, come in the lab, have their own questions, right, from their own life experiences, and see how can we empirically approach that question, what's the literature, hopefully enable them to ask the question, collect their data, or become a part of our research, and essentially see them bloom. That's one of the things that makes me the happiest in research, I think, collaborating with smart young people.
Awesome. I mean, you maybe already sort of kind of answer this there, but I mean, the decision to start doing science and research for a career, I mean, how did you decide to do that, and when did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Turkey, right? And in my high school or middle school, we weren't close to a major university. So I didn't even know that this was an option. I didn't know you could study psychology and do research, right? We would hear clinical psychologists, but I actually was never interested in clinical psychology. My interest was that my mother was an elementary school teacher, and I would see her students really differing in school, and then I would see their life outcomes kind of like, unfolding quite different paths, right? And I would also see her talking to parents all the time, because in Turkey the elementary school teacher is with the same kid for 5 years, so she takes them from first grade and they are together fifth grade, so we would get to know the family really well. So I would see, this student is performing this way, but look at what's going on in the home environment. So this, I guess, something I grew up with, and I really wanted to know, why are people different? I was interested, I guess, this question, now I understand, of individual differences. What are the roots of individual differences? How can we address it environmentally and as well as neural, right? What are the neural underpinnings of individual differences between children, atypical developing children, typical developing children? I guess I can continue to talk about this, but that was the root of my interest. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to become a psychologist. And at the time in Turkey, this wasn't really like a valid major. My father actually was a chemical engineer, and he would say, no, you need to become an engineer, right? That's it. That's the only way. I told my principal at the time, I'm going to go study psychology. And he would say, yeah, sure, you go ahead and do that. But he would try to convince me to go to law school or other school. Then, I ended up majoring in psych. And I again didn't know what research was. I started reaching out to different professors. I didn't know what I was talking about, but I said, can I get involved in research in any way? And that's something I probably will come back to, the importance of reaching out to people who are there, to support you. I mean, your professors might not have time to reach out to you, but you need to come up with mentors. You need to go seek out those mentors. They can be professors, they can be grad students, they can be senior undergrads, they can be Adam, right? So it's, I think, very important to go talk to people and see what's out there. So that's how it started, and I ended up, doing the PhD, and I'm here.
Awesome. That is quite the journey and quite the kind of foundations to where you are now, I guess, as well. That's very interesting. So kind of in that same vein about research, and maybe kind of extending off of what maybe got you excited and kind of how you started, my own personal experience is that my preconceptions about what research consisted of is very different than actually doing it. So what has surprised you, been something that you didn't expect throughout your journey of maybe starting research and kind of going throughout the PhD and then starting your own research group?
Yeah, I mean, again, to be very frank with your students, right? I thought, if I become an assistant professor, right, if I get this position at university, for sure, by then I'll know everything about developmental science or child development. But research is a very incremental process, right? I mean, if we are lifelong learners, that's actually part of the fun, most of the fun for me, but it's also kind of requires this mindset that you are always learning. There's no end goal. You're always improving. There's always some problem to solve, right? Which we can come back to. So yes, I am obviously very familiar with developmental cognitive neuroscience, developmental science, but there's always something to be learned and a skill that you can grow. New imaging techniques are coming up as we speak, right? I need to familiarize myself with that literature. So that, I think, was something maybe that was surprising to me, that I would always be learning, always be improving. It's not like there's this, okay, I now am the guru of developmental science, right? Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, the kind of lifelong learner is just built into the research role. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like maybe this kind of time for this to, there's ups and downs throughout any sort of career, and so I think just specific to you, kind of a story in which kind of a challenge, setback, academic, professional, however that, and kind of maybe how you were able to work through that and work around that and get past that.
Yeah. I mean, I also tell my grad students, right, 90% of academia is rejection. You just need to get used to it. As a student, I really encourage them to have this growth mindset. There's really nice research by Carol Dweck at Stanford University about growth mindset. I am not good at this yet, right? And what can I do to solve? Chemistry, as far as I can tell, is not going to be, nothing is easy, right? But so we are used to these setbacks and challenges. And academia, I think, does require some sort of persistence, right? You will face these setbacks. I mean, I have a lot of them. I have them every day. But one major one was that I was mostly a behavioral researcher, so I was mostly leveraging behavioral methods. But then I got to see, I used to work with kids with early brain injury. These are kids who had stroke during or right after birth. And sometimes you would see them performing low on a test, right? Actually, as a group, they do quite fine, which evidences the plasticity of the young brain. That's another story we can talk about. But I would see, okay, this is a kid who has brain injury and they got a score of X on this test. And here's a kid who does not have a brain injury, but they don't really have a lot of support at home and they are performing the same. So I wanted to know, are these kids really recruiting similar or different systems in the brain, right? How are these kids approaching the task? And I wanted to gain expertise in neuroimaging methods. But obviously it was quite difficult for me to go find training, right? Convince people to train me as someone who doesn't have a background in biology, neuroscience, chemistry. And as I said, I studied psychology. So I went, I don't know how many emails I sent to different PIs and labs to see if they have a position for me as a postdoc. And I got rejection over rejection. They really wanted someone who had the skills, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was a lab that I really, whose work I really liked and appreciated at Northwestern. I went to the PI and then he said, you know what, we really want someone with a more neuroimaging background and we like your work. And he said, why don't you go back, try to gain as much experience as you can in any way and come back next year. Then that year I went to all the talks I can, right? I tried to attend the workshops I can. I tried to help the people with their projects. And then I went back to him the next year and I said, you know, this is the experience I gained. I read the literature. I was a part of these projects. And he said, okay, yeah, I'm happy to take you as a postdoc, and that was one of most formative experiences of my life. So I could have given up right after that many rejections, especially hearing no from him. But I think trying to make connections and reading the literature, again, being persistent, led me to this path, which I really significantly enhances my research. So in his lab, I learned MRI, DTI, fMRI, and other methods as well. So that would be one example, but as I said, in academia, I think we should get used to this. Also in undergraduate life, right? There will be setbacks. You just keep going.
Awesome.
And you ask for help. Yeah, you don't keep going on your own. You ask for help.
Yes, yes. And maybe you're kind of hitting on this too, with the kind of the imaging side of your research and your background. And this is obviously, I'm chemistry instructor, so I kind of want to ask from this side of things, which maybe would be harder at some levels. But I mean, how do you see chemistry influencing or having an impact on your work, or having, at least in the past, how do you see that influencing or having an impact, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I would say I was talking about this with a colleague, right? The skills that your student acquire in chemistry, right? Mm-hmm. Leave aside the content knowledge, being able to analytically examine problems, their computational skills, right? All these skills are very transferable. So I would argue that these general thinking skills, problem solving, will generalize and will have implications for whatever discipline they go to after this. But more specifically, I actually have a collaboration with a chemist at UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago. We try to understand why some students struggle with organic chemistry. Mm-hmm. So it tends to be, a kind of a challenging course. So we try to understand what are the representations that might make it easier for students. And we are conducting an imaging study. So we present students with more models, concrete models, what we call your figures, ball and stick.
Ball and stick.
Ball and stick models. And we also compare it with more gesture training. And we want to see what are the neurocognitive underpinnings of getting trained with one as opposed to the other. So chemistry, I think on its own is not separate from other disciplines. We are interested in problem solving in these complex domains, right? So yes, my research focused on preschool children, but we know that some of the gaps remain. So what are the neurocognitive base of problem solving on the other end in these very advanced disciplines? So that's a question I have been thinking about and collaborating. But I think in general, for your students, the skills that they acquire in chemistry will not be limited to chemistry careers, right? I would say they are very transferable. Those STEM skills are very highly appreciated by us, and I'm sure others as well.
Well, I know I say that, but it doesn't mean as much when I say that. Yes, these skills are transferred, but it's good to hear you say that. And obviously, if you had answers to helping students understand how to approach organic chemistry, I'm sure that would be a very well received piece of information. But so maybe to kind of start to pull this into a knot, I guess, kind of to summarize, if you had to give, based on your background and how you've got here and to where you are, one piece of advice to someone early in their academic journey, if they're just entering college, one piece of advice that maybe you wish you would have had at that stage in your career.
Yeah, I mean, no one does this alone. You know how they say it takes a village to raise a kid? It takes a village to raise a scientist. You can't do this alone. You don't have to do this alone. When you are struggling, really reach out. Network with your friends or professors. Someone didn't email back, email twice, right? Like reach out. Know that this is hard. And there are people on this campus that are willing to help you. So again, if you need help, make sure that people know that you need help, and make sure that you are surrounded by people who do want you to succeed. This is something I kind of thought I knew at the beginning, right? I thought I need to be the smartest. I need to work the hardest. But many people who make it, quote unquote, do it because of their social support. And the social support can take many forms. Right? Just find your niche, find your people, and reach out, seek help for them. And you can do hard things. I really do think so. And I think especially on this campus, I have been to multiple campuses, campuses. And I think this is a campus where there is help if you want to look for it. We do care about our undergrads. I mean, we know how we all value our STEM undergrads. So I would say there is help out there, and go get it if you need help. No one does this alone.
Excellent. I like that. That is a perfect way to kind of summarize this. And I think that is awesome advice that we all can, wherever we're at, actually can probably still be applicable for anybody on the university. So thank you so much. I really appreciate time. Thank you for listening along to Chats with a Scientist. Hopefully you found something interesting in today's conversation. I want to thank Dr. Ece Demir-Lira again for joining, and we'll see you in the next episode.